guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a thriller from the United States, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by Lopez-Gallego, and this film is called The Hollow Point. So The Hollow Point is set in Los Reyes, which is a border town with Mexico, and you've got the drug cartels who are trying to smuggle in bullets. Now these bullets are armor piercing and it's going to really help their cause. And so they get these everyday Americans to smuggle over the border in order for a large pay rise. And so the authorities are trying to put a stop to this. At the start of the film, the sheriff catches one of these gun runners and he ends up killing him in a struggle. And so the authorities are investigating this incident, and while they're investigating, they stand the sheriff down and they get a new sheriff in. So this new sheriff is about to realise how difficult it is to maintain law around here, and he's going to go head on with the Mexican drug cartels, and he's going to learn that a hitman has been assigned the task of wiping him out because he is basically halting the progression of what they want, which ultimately is a very bad thing. So it's about to be a fight for survival, and whether or not the sheriff can save the day is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Hollow Point. This is definitely a Western film. It's a good old-fashioned Western film that is intertwined with modern-day environments. So you've got the sheriff who kicks ass, you've got the sheriff who's going to do the right thing by everybody, and then you've got the caricature sort of villain, which is this Mexican hitman. And so the Mexican hitman is everything you get from a good old-fashioned Wild West villain, in that he's caricatured, he's ruthless, and he's the complete opposite of what the sheriff is. And in this film, the sheriff is a little bit, grey in colour. It's not black and white, so you do get a little bit of development in these characters, but ultimately you've got one guy who's trying to do good and one guy who's trying to do bad, and they're going to be butting heads. And that's everything that makes a Western so memorable, and ultimately is what makes this film memorable, is that it does feel like it's a throwback to good old-fashioned Wild West, but the difference is that it does take place in the time that we are currently in. So I thought the showdown element of the film was by far the best, and I thought the cinematography was absolutely fantastic. It does give that Wild West sort of feel. Gonzalo Lopez-Gallego really does have an eye for capturing an atmosphere, and I thought the atmosphere was very tense. It does have a lot of anticipation that something really bad is going to happen. When you're dealing with Mexican drug cartels, they are very scary people. So when you use that as a villain in a film, it does give you that fear factor, is because you know that these people do horrible things in real life, and that you know that if someone double crosses them or tries to stand up to them, they're going to send something to really take care of you. And so the anticipation, the fear factor, the fear factor of the monster in the corner of the room is forever intensifying to a point where you feel as though, okay, this sheriff is really out of his depth, and you think that the car crash is inevitable, but you're just waiting for the impact. And when the impact does deliver itself in this film, I thought it was very rewarding. It's because there's a lot of action, there's actually quite a lot of brutality in this film, and once again, it's everything that you want from a Western. So the acting was very good. You've got Patrick Wilson, who plays the sheriff. There's a little bit more to the sheriff than you first think, and then you've got John Leguizamo, who plays the Mexican hitman. And so I thought the Mexican hitman was fantastic, but I do have a problem with that character, which is ultimately the problem I have with the whole film, which I'll go into a little bit later. But I thought that the continuity of the film was very good. It is a fun film. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which is ultimately another problem I had with it. But I just thought that if you like good old-fashioned Westerns, then you're going to get something out of The Hollow Point. So Gonzalo Lopez-Gallego is a fantastic director, one of my favourite directors. He directed Apollo 18, King of the Hill, and also Open Grave. Now, King of the Hill was his native Spanish film, and since then he has gone over to the United States, but he hasn't lost his way. He hasn't lost that trademark that makes him the director that he is. He can create a lot of suspense through the atmosphere, and as I said, it's that impending sense of doom, it's the impending sense of anticipation. What is behind the door? I know it's very bad, I know it's going to hurt me, but you're waiting for that anticipation. I think the anticipation is very present in this film in the first half, is that yes, these drug cartels are going to want revenge for what this sheriff has been doing, but you don't know where this revenge is going to come from, so you're always on the edge of your seat, waiting, is danger around that next corner? And so the anticipation, the director really plays with you, and that's the quality that makes Gonzalo Lopez-Gallego the director that he is. I thought the score was fantastic. The score reminded me in some areas of Sicario. Now Sicario, the score was very scary, and this film, it also has that fear factor within the score. And so once again, it does magnify that certain sense of anticipation of doom, of dread. And so whenever you're dealing with Mexican drug cartels, a lot of films, especially Sicario, that really played on that fear of these drug cartels and just how powerful these drug cartels are. In this film, it has that same sense, but it's a lot more light-hearted. It's not so much light-hearted, but it's a lot more entertaining than Sicario was. Sicario was just a deeply disturbing film, whereas this film has disturbing elements, but ultimately it's an action film. Ultimately, it's a Western throwback that'll have a lot of fans of this particular genre very pleased with what they actually get. So the continuity was very well done, but unfortunately I do have a few problems with this film. Now, I will also go through the acting. I thought the acting was very good, especially from Patrick Wilson, who plays the sheriff. This sheriff was badass, and finally you've got a character who can stand up to the Mexican drug cartels, and this is what gives that entertainment value. This is what gives that Western value. It's not a Sicario sort of commentary on how bad the drug problem is in Mexico and USA, but ultimately this film is using that sort of element and using that fear factor to create this massive boogeyman. But you've got this sheriff who's really badass, and he can stand up to these drug cartels, and you feel that he can protect himself. And so it does give you that caricature sort of Western element that a lot of other films don't really have, is because everyone's scared of the drug cartels and everyone's obsessed with showing you how bad these drug cartels are, as opposed to giving you someone that you can root for that can actually stand up to them. So Patrick Wilson's character in Hollow Point was actually a character that you can actually do that you can actually feel, okay, we're fighting back, and that there is hope. And so that is something that you get with a lot of, classic westerns, good, the bad, the ugly, all these gunslingers that can come and save the day and save the town. Basically, the old-fashioned Wild West town in this regard is Los Reyes, and Los Reyes need a sheriff that can stand up to the impending sense of doom, and ultimately Patrick Wilson's character is that. Patrick Wilson's character also has a little bit of depth to him that you didn't initially think it would, and this is something that is very reminiscent of Gonzalo Lopez-Gallego. He gives his characters a little bit more than you would expect, and he also just gives you a little bit more to think about. Unfortunately, the movie does have some problems. Now, the biggest problem I have is that it does get a little bit too silly towards the end. It does lose the impact that the film has in the first half. And ultimately, this is the same problem I had with John Leguizamo's character, the villain. Now, this is a caricature villain. This is the villain that matches up to the sheriff. In these types of films, you need these caricature sort of characters that can butt heads. And the movie does have that. At the start of the film, John Leguizamo's character is absolutely ruthless. He was very, very scary. But then all of a sudden, towards the end of the film, you get a little bit more character insight into this guy, and it does humanise him to the point where you think, okay, he's not that caricature anymore. He's taking himself a little bit too seriously for what the film is. What the film is this action sort of Western thriller that has silly moments that do, prevent it from being a serious film, but when you've got character development in the villain and also to some extent in the sheriff, you feel as though it's not needed. It's that John Leguizamo's character was absolutely, he was fascinatingly scary at the start of the film. Why did we have to paint him in a way where it does lessen that impact? And unfortunately, the film does that in a lot of areas, is that it is very scary at the start of the movie, but then it goes down this B-grade sort of action approach where it does explain a few things, and it does become a little bit silly, and it does prevent the film from being as scary as I actually thought it really should have been. And so the best way I can sum this film up is the problems with John Leguizamo's character is that the more it's explained, the less impact it has, and it does go down a path where you think this is a B-grade sort of action film as opposed to a very scary sort of throwback to Western films. So that was my biggest problem with the movie, but having said that, there is a lot of fun to have with the Hollow Point. If you are a fan of Western films and you like the caricature, good guy versus bad guy, then you're definitely going to get something out of this film, and as a result of that, I enjoyed it, and I'm going to give it 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.